ants bite my ass.
I'm only four. Bonjour, Monsieur Pussycat.
Cracking toast, right?
Start spreading the news.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the short podcast about short films. I am your host, and we are discussing the Academy Award for Best Animated Short. Today's episode is about the 87th year of the award at the 91st Academy Awards, which celebrates the films of 2018. Today's guest you last heard discussing Great and the nominees of 1975. Please welcome back Michael Slavin. Hello, Michael.
Hello, how you doing?
Doing all right. It's a pleasure to have you back here. It's a long time in terms of just the
So,
years, but
yeah, but also in terms of since I last spoke to you, I've gone away and become a film and TV writer again. So I can actually say that this is kind of my job now, not just like a fun thing I'm doing.
hooray. That's
Yeah, so
awesome.
that's exciting. So hopefully I have more insight now than I did last time because last time I was just so blinded by how much I hated one of them.
Yeah. And like we were talking beforehand, we know you don't blindly, well, I guess not blindly hate, but like blinded with hate for any
Yeah,
of them.
yeah.
So we'll get to the quality of like the individual shorts as we come upon them. Uh, but just remind us, what is your familiarity with the best animated short category?
I would say my familiarity is quite low, honestly. Like it's one of those things where I wish that I spent more time to get into it, and I actually really enjoy doing this because part of it is it kind of like kicks me into gear to watch things I wouldn't normally watch. And I think that's something that's really exciting about it. And like there are so many gems from some of the most creative people ever, and I think that it's really impressive how much, like in some of these, the amount of like different plot beats, the amount of emotion, and the amount of plot that you can load into like 8 to 15 minutes is so impressive. And there's an argument for it being almost more impressive to be able to like shorten it down because I guess with my job as a journalist, a lot of the time it's you're trying to take these massive stories and condense it down as far as you can so that people will read it. So I think that's something that is like not massively always appreciated. So I do really enjoy watching it, but my familiarity is low, is a very roundabout way of saying that.
Well, maybe I'll be able to convince you to watch a few more once we're done here.
I absolutely should be. I should be watching more. You don't need to convince me. I just need to convince myself to stop being lazy.
Just need to like maybe threaten you a little bit, just like
Oh yeah.
whoa, like shakes
Oh
my
yeah, yeah,
fist.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was real scary.
I try, I try.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, but before we even discuss the short films today, even though this is a short film centric podcast, there is also a Best Animated Feature category at the
Hmm.
Academy Awards. So to be fair to them, Michael, I'm going to list off the names of the nominees for Best Animated Feature this year, and I want you to just tell me in just one word what you think of them, or simply say you haven't seen it if you haven't seen it. You ready?
You've thrown me on this. I don't think we did this last time. Oh my God.
Well,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
there
yeah.
wasn't the category la last time.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
It only
Yes.
started in 2001 with Shrek.
Oh yeah,
Or
with Shrek. Yeah, Shrek was the first ever winner.
Mhm.
Yeah, hit me, hit me.
All right. So first we have the year's winner, which is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
One word you said?
Yes.
Iconic. Like, yeah, yeah.
Uh, Number two, we have The Incredibles 2.
Eh is my best. Yeah. Eh.
Number three, we have Isle of Dogs.
Fine
All
is
right.
maybe a bit of a hot take, but fine.
Uh,
Yeah.
Number four, we have Mirai.
Haven't seen.
All right. And number five, we have Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Oh, how? That's my one word. How?
Man. Well,
Seriously, that
this
was
is,
nominated.
yeah, it really was.
Was there nothing? Were there only five animated films that year?
It was kind of a weird year, but yeah, actually, I'll just look really quickly and like see what.
Yeah. See if there were any snubs.
Okay. Early Man, the Aardman movie.
What
Um,
better?
we have Ruben Brandt Collector, which is a Hungarian animated movie that I've seen that's decent and
Yeah.
definitely better than Ralph Breaks the Internet.
There's
Um,
a film here called Duck Duck Goose, and I've not seen it, but I already prefer it.
oh, that's I think that's the like Jim Gaffigan like animated movie.
Yeah.
It's low quality.
Sherlock Gnomes came out in 2018. How did that not get a no Hotel Transylvania free? There are some real snubs.
Are you? I don't think Hotel Trans like I haven't seen Hotel Transylvania 3, but I don't think it's worse or I don't think it's better than how Ralph Breaks the Internet, to be fair.
How dare you?
Um, yeah,
How
I'm
yeah, no,
looking at
this
the
is a
Annie
weak year.
Awards right now,
Yeah.
just looking for like
Th-
other animated movies.
When I say how, this is quite a weak year, it looks like.
Yeah. But
Um,
yeah, there's a
Scooby-Doo and the Gourmet Ghost. Oh my God. What's your favorite animated Scooby-Doo film?
I've only seen a couple of them. Uh I saw Zombie Island.
Yeah.
I think I know I've seen another one, but I don't even remember what it was.
Uh,
Anyway, we
the best one is Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase. It is 10 out of 10. It's a banger. I love it. That's what we should be talking about today is Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase.
we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about our first
You
nominee and the year's
coward.
winner,
Bored.
which is Bao, directed by Domi Shi. This is the first and only nomination in this category for Shi, as well as producer Becky Nyman Cobb. This is also the 15th nomination and fifth win for Pixar, last winning for Piper in 2016. To begin, I think I can say pretty confidently that Domishi is the first Oscar winner to have grown up posting anime fan art onto DeviantArt and to just generally be part of this online fandom culture. And the internet is what really helped her decide to become an artist and animator after connecting with other artists online and being inspired. She would then go to Sheridan College, graduating with a degree in animation in 2011 and with a specific interest in storyboarding. After graduating, she got an internship at Pixar, working on storyboards for Inside Out. And while working on the film, she also developed pitches for Pixar's short film program, which had the potential to give anyone at the company the chance to direct their own short film. And the board at Pixar really, really liked Domishi's pitch, and she would become the first woman to direct a Pixar short film, and soon after would become the first woman to direct a Pixar feature, with Turning Red being released in 2022 and earning she a second Oscar nomination. Bao has its origins in Xi's own recurring fantasies about food, and she even had a Tumblr blog called My Food Fantasies, featuring drawings imagining being baked into a croissant in order to eat yourself out of it, or scaling Mount Everest by eating up a rope made of sausage. The specific fantasy that inspired Bao is one featured in the film, a mother nuzzling a baozi until it dies. She would connect the fantasy with her own life, growing up as an only child, being constantly doted on by her own mother. As she developed the film, it grew into a story about a kind of destructive love, with she explaining the type of love you would destroy so it would not disappear or go away. When animating the film, she and the animators would go out to local restaurants to get references for the dumplings in the film, and even Domi Shi's mother came into the studio to demonstrate how to make them. And perhaps unexpectedly, the film provided a challenge to the animators, as the texture and consistency of the Bowser is unlike anything that Pixar had animated up to that point. It required a lot of fine-tuning of the simulation in order to perfect the physics of it. Bao is about a woman making baozi for her husband. When he runs off to work, one of the baozi comes to life. Immediately, the woman starts taking care of it, treating it like her own child. But as time goes on, the little Bao wants to do other things, but the mom is a tad overprotective. This leads to the Bao resenting his mother and starts shutting her out of his life. And this all leads up to him getting engaged to a white woman. This is far enough, and she is not going to let him leave. But how can she stop him? And is this all perhaps a metaphor for something else? Michael, what did you think of Bao?
So what do I think about? I think it started off really strongly. Like the music is insanely good. I think I really enjoy when a film that takes those inspiration from like Chinese music, actually like appears to have done it with authenticity and doesn't do it in kind of like a caricature style way. Like the music was really authentic and really just like was a really unique way to score it, I guess, for like a Western short, in my opinion. And the detail, obviously, just immediately what you notice is the detail of the animation is crazy in Bao. And I feel like that's a big part of why it won. Like, not to talk less of like the plot itself. And I didn't actually, for the listeners, I don't really, with these things, with the animated shorts, I don't tend to do any real research on it because I like hearing when you do that like explanation, and that's so interesting with regards to it like linking to her own food fantasies and her own connection to her mother. But yeah, I liked it. It was a little bit, it's weird to call something that's so like weird and out there a bit surface level, but like it didn't really feel like there were many, like, not that something needs twists, but it was very expected, almost like, apart from spoilers, the bit where she eats the bow is like obviously shocking, but from a plot sense, it being empty nest syndrome, she's replacing it with this, and then shock, he comes back and like it just wasn't really, I wasn't super engaged. Um, I will say I made a specific note, so I make notes when I'm watching these. And one of the first notes is I'd have punted that little baby, that's for sure, because it really creeped me out at first.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel that's something you would say. You and Rory both would have wanted to punt it.
Hey, don't lump me in with that cretin. Um,
Come on, you have to admit.
Yeah, that's very Rory line. But like I really, it freaked me out at first, but in like a good way. Like it was really well done. Like again, just all the animation is beautiful and so top notch. And bits of the story were really interesting. But I just feel like for it to win in what I would say, without spoiling, is a relatively strong year,
Mhm.
did it feel like a winner to me? Not really. Like again, that part of that though is that I'm much more interested in the, like, detail is really cool with animation and it can be really expressive, but that's not as interesting to me as like something being done for a creative choice, like something that's way less detailed, like some of the others that are able to express more to like convey story. I find that more interesting than just the pure like pursuit of realism that a lot of animators have.
Mhm.
Um, I don't. What did you think? How do you like on your? Because this was my first watch. How did you feel revisiting Bao?
Yeah, so I did see this for the first time in theaters. Like I watched Incredibles 2 in theaters. It's I
Mm.
watched this before it. I loved it back then. I loved it when I went to like the short screening to watch this again and watch it along with the other lineups again back in like 2018, 2019. And watching it now, I still love this thing. The
Thanks.
thing that I really love about this is that it's probably the weirdest of the Pixar short films, which again,
Yes.
that's not a high bar. Like I feel like they do try to keep things a bit approachable. So just the fact that they did like make this fucking movie where it's like she starts raising this dumpling as her child, and then it just like it becomes this fucking man child
I
who
hate the
gets
goatee
engaged to a
freaks me
white
out.
woman.
The goatee freaks me out.
It's just, and it's like, yes, it's like there's the very obvious metaphor about it, but it's just like I just enjoy the surrealness of the situation, and then
Yeah.
the fucking moment where she eats him, it's just like that is just shocker of the fucking century. It's just like you like it's something you joke about in your mind. It's like, but no, you don't think they actually go for it, but then she does. And it's
Yeah.
just and she is distraught. Like you get this moment where she's just like so horrified at what she's done. But then of course it turns out this was all just a dream, and it's just like it's all about her actual son. And then you have the little ending where it's just like you have the the white fiance who making the perfect dumplings, and every
I literally the last thing I wrote was all like writing in all caps, white girl can cook question mark, and right above it just his ass can't cook. Because the fact that she like that was a huge twist. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like I want to clarify to be clear, I do really enjoy it. It's more about I know how beloved this short is, and I just think in the context of the others, I feel like it's a bit surface level,
Mhm.
but it is really good and really fun and quite surreal. And like shorts don't always need to have this like super deeper layers. Like it can just sometimes be like, this is the idea we're presenting. Here's an interesting way in which we're doing it. And again, like whilst I prefer probably a more expressive art style, like you do just have to marvel at like it is ridiculous the level of detail they're able to go into with this, especially like for a short where you'd imagine the timeline would have been a lot shorter than say a feature film where they've got way longer to work on it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, balance good. I yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, I just love this one. It's certainly probably like one of my favorite Pixar shorts. Definitely up there. Um, yeah. Anything else you like to say about it? And any favorite moments or anything?
Oh, her slide tackling someone. Amazing. Incredible. And she just comes out of frame and cleans them out to protect her child. Hilarious. Like that was for me the funniest moment of I mean, apart from when she ate him. That was like if we're talking about best moment, that was the best moment. It was hilarious. That was for me the only point at which there were 2 points at which I was watching where what happened didn't immediately wasn't what I immediately expected to follow what preceded. Those 2 moments were when she ate the kid and when the white girl at the end can cook bao really well. Those were genuinely the 2 moments where I was like, oh, okay, that's not what I immediately thought was going to happen based on like 5 seconds ago.
hmm Actually, I do want to talk about just like the character animation really quick because
Hmm.
it's like I really love the way like the mom like moves, her facial expressions is just like, and it's just like it does a very good job of like making sure that these characters are still like stylized because it's like
Yeah.
there's been problems in other Pixar shorts where it's just like things just kind of feel a bit generic with the worlds and the character designs and stuff. And it's just like there's a like this really makes sure to get some like actual personality into every single character. Or and it's just like it just does it so well. And it's like it's those little touches that really just make this short just really stand out as like one of Pixar's best.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All
Really.
right. Uh And moving on from that, we will go to our second nominee, which is Animal Behavior, directed by David Fine and Allison Snowden. This is the third nomination for Snowden and second nomination for Fine, last being nominated over 20 years prior for Bob's Birthday, which won the duo an Oscar. So, what has happened in the last 20 years? Well, not more short films, but rather television. First came a spinoff of their Oscar-winning film titled Bob and Margaret about the trials and tribulations of middle-aged marriage. The show was decently popular and got 4 seasons. Their next efforts were in collaboration with Aardman Animation as the duo helped develop the Shaun the Sheep animated series based on a character which first appeared in the Oscar-winning Wallace and Gromit short A Close Shave. Then we had a much less successful effort from them, a children's show titled Ricky Sprocket's Showbiz Boy, about a mega famous child actor and his otherwise normal life. Lastly, and featuring the least personal involvement from Snowden and Fine, was their assistance in helping with the creation of Peppa Pig, with Snowden writing a few of the episodes. But perhaps more important is the fact that their daughter, Lily, voiced Peppa Pig in the first season, and she is now an illustrator in her own right. But after all this time, they don't make another short until now. The film was something that the duo had been developing as an idea for a long time, starting with Snowden's own experiences in a self-help class and the humor she found in it, as well as an idea about animals trying to get cosmetic surgery. These ideas eventually converge into an idea about animals going to therapy and questioning their own animalistic natures. There was consideration of turning it into a TV series, but the idea naturally developed into a short film. Snowden and Fine actually were looking for an opportunity to go back to their short film roots, as it had been just so long since they were personally animating as opposed to just show running or developing. As such, the film was their first time animating digitally as well. Also, the film uses a more muted color palette compared to their prior films, mainly to get the vibe of a therapist's office better and contrast it with the comedy on display. And one last note before we get into the film, there is a credit in the film dedicating it to Vancouver General Hospital. That's because during production, Allison Snowden faced some life-threatening health issues requiring a double lung transplant. She was so incredibly grateful to the staff of the hospital and wanted to do something to thank them, so she put a dedication to them in the film and also premiered the film at the hospital and worked closely and currently works closely with the VGH Foundation that raises funds for the hospital. Animal Behavior is about animals in a group therapy session led by a doctor and featuring a leech, a bird, a praying mantis, a pig, a cat, and a gorilla, each with their own issues. The animals try to curb some of their destructive behaviors, but the gorilla begins to question whether any of this matters. And I can answer that question right now. None of this matters. This is a very boring short film. It's not very funny. It has its moments. There's some little jokes I like, especially
That makes
like
it more annoying though, for me. The fact that there are one or two bits that are genuinely really good. Like the Joker with the bird is genuinely hilarious
that's what I was
and
about to
really
say.
well done and really well animated. And it makes me more annoyed when the rest of it kind of. Why would you tell me about her double lung transplant? Because now I feel bad about how much I hated this film.
No, it's okay.
You
You can
made
still hate it.
me. Um, yeah, no, this stunk. This absolutely reeked.
I,
This was
I'm
not a good short film.
I'm probably not as like harsh towards it as you are, but it's like I just was just like disappointed in it. It's like I felt the exact same way when I watched it the first time.
Yeah,
It's just like, is this it? Is this all we're doing here? It's just like it wants to do that kind of classic like British deadpan humor, but it's just like it just doesn't have enough actual jokes in there to really
no.
make it funny.
There's after the first three jokes where the punchline was bomb, they went, you know what? Got one more in me. There are like four different jokes in this where the punchline is someone's licking their bum, someone likes to sniff other bums, that someone sits on someone and goes up someone's bums. It's just weird how much arse like plays a part in the humor of this film in a really boring, obvious way. Like it's that aspect of it just really infuriated me because do it once, fine. The joke's there. If you got to do it, you got to do it. But
Hmm.
just kept going. Oh my God. So, and then like the whole praying mantis character was so dull. Like it was so you know, it's literally if you did like a circle of like each animal and like different characteristics that could be funny about it, the very first thing you'd do would be, oh my God, isn't it so crazy that they eat the man during sex? That's hilarious. That's her whole character. That and the fact that she's texting a lot and is a bit rude. Like that is so boring. Yeah, there are a couple bits early on that seem like good characterization, but like was it a worm? What was it? The
Uh
the one that hid in the bag and then went up his arse.
oh yeah, it's like it's a leech, I think.
The leech. The leech was fun. The leech was like fairly good characterization, I guess. But like then nothing's done with it. And what I guess is the main character is the ape the main character.
Yeah,
So
it's like the
boring.
gorilla and the doctor are like
Yeah. God.
the main ones.
Like if I told you to name three characteristics about that gorilla other than angry and gorilla, what else is there to the character?
Um, but so I guess I'm a bit of a disadvantage here because I watched this film the last time we were supposed to record, and it's
Ru-
just like, and I didn't
Wow,
rewatch
out
it for
me
this.
on the podcast. Out me on the podcast, huh?
Uh, for the record, and I'll sure I'll just say that was supposed to be 20 days ago.
Yeah.
But
I'm a
anyway,
busy I'm a busy guy. I'm sorry. Sorry
it
about that.
it's okay.
But
It's fine. It's
but
fine. But
but
anyway,
yeah,
but yeah, that is a problem with the film. It is like they are. It is a bit simplistic, which again, it's just like when you have so many characters in this kind of setting, you kind of need them to be a bit simplistic because they can only get so much time. I'm just like, but at least with the gorilla, since he does get so much screen time, he's the one who's like calling out, just like what's the point of all of this? It's just like why are you like being so mean to yourselves or whatever? Or it's just like. And it's like I actually do like the ending of it, where it's just like the whole when the whole thing just kind of breaks down, and you see the doctor, like kind of revert into like his dog persona,
yeah.
and it's just like it's a it's a nice ending to it, but it's just like I just wish it had there was just more leading up into it that's like make it feel more satisfying for this short. And it's just like it just doesn't do as much as it really needs to. It's like honestly, like if this were to be good, either make it a lot shorter, make it you could make it just like a one-on-one therapy session. And or what you could do is make it longer and just develop the characters out a little bit more. Like have some more conversation going on, digging more into like what you can do with each of these characters. But just like it just as it is, it just sits in this weird middle area where it's just like it doesn't have enough time to give all these characters a personality, but it has too much time where it's just like
Yeah.
these broad like archetypes or whatever run just so thin. And it's just like you just get annoyed with the whole thing.
It is wild that this was 15 minutes and Bao was what, 8, 9?
Eight.
Like that is crazy because like again, did I love Bao as much as everyone else? No. The amount of extra characterization in that 8 minutes versus this 15, which like doesn't sound like a big difference, but it's double the screen time. It's the difference between an hour and a half movie and a 3 hour Scorsese. Like that is massive in terms of the amount of difference, and so much less is done with it. And I wish it was more interesting to the point where this could be a funny podcast episode because I could rip into it and be like, oh, this like last time where there was one that was so terrible and I had so much to say about how much I hated it. This is just a bit of a waste of 15 minutes, wasn't it?
Hmm. Yeah.
Really?
And it's like it's gonna be interesting comparing this to the other short film this year that's also 15 minutes long. It's just like see how they
Mm,
use their time differently.
yeah. Yeah.
But
Definitely.
until we get to that, is there anything else you want to point out about this short, or do you
I don't
just
think
want to
there
move
is
on?
anything else to point out about this short.
Yeah, we kind of we
It
said
was
everything
really
that there is
boring.
about
There
this.
is nothing interesting with the color palette. The animation is fine, like fucking big mouth ass animation, like, and the characterization is
Okay, hold on.
okay at
It's not
best.
big mouth animation. The animation is fine. It's
Fine.
fine.
It's fine. It's
Like,
fine.
but
It's
we did
slightly better big mouth. Okay, I'll give you that.
just putting this and big mouth in the same sentence. It's just like like I don't even like this movie, but I feel like I need to defend it from such a terrible accusation. Uh,
You're just soft. I'm saying what needs to be said.
anyway, we did leave out one very important thing about this short. The pig, he likes to eat.
Shut up, shut up, shut up. It's so boring. Because that's the whole character. That's the whole fucking character. Let's move on.
And
That
honestly,
that
it I do think it's funny how there's like at the end of the film when the gorilla goes on his big rant, it's just like he points out how everybody just has like these like just bare bones like archetypes, but it's just like yeah, you're just kind of pointing out your own flaws here, movie.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You think you're being self-aware, but you're just reminding me how much I hate you.
Hmm. Anyway, we'll move on to our third nominee, which is Late Afternoon, directed by Louise Bagnall. This is the first and only nominations for Bagnall and producer Nuria Gonzalez Blanco. Bagnall graduated from the Dunleary Institute of Art Design and Technology with a degree in animation. From there, she explored Ireland's diverse animation scene, animating on shows like The Amazing World of Gumball and Randy Cunningham Ninth Grade Ninja before beginning her collaborations with Cartoon Saloon, doing character layout work on Song of the Sea and The Breadwinner. It's with Cartoon Saloon that Bagnall was able to get this film made and is currently working on directing a feature film with them called Julian or Julian. I'm not entirely sure. She's made other short films prior to Late Afternoon, but Bagnall states that there was a lack of confidence she had in her own creative voice that working with Cartoon Saloon helped her overcome and allowed her to bring a stronger emotional core to this film. The film came from a desire to explore a woman's life, both inside and out. And as development went on, Bagnall decided to incorporate an idea of memory loss so that we, the audience, may discover the life of the woman with her. From there, the film gained its style from watercolor concept art by Bagnall, and a lot of work was put into the color palette of the film, separating the present from the past, the real from the unreal, and making sure everything complements each other. The art style itself is rather simplistic, partially because that's just Bagnall's personal style, but also because it can allow for greater emotional resonance, more of a canvas for the viewer to put their own feelings onto. Late Afternoon is about an old woman with dementia, Emily, being looked after by a younger woman, Kate. While Kate tends to her needs, Emily finds herself drifting in and out of her own past. Michael, what did you think of Late Afternoon?
I just I love cinema. I love this so much. It was so incredible. Like when you're talking about the last one, like not to spend too much time talking about other ones, but when you're talking about 15 minutes and like how no characterization really, and like, oh, it is a short amount of time. This is what you do with like 10 minutes of time. The amount of emotion that she was able to put is genuinely incredible. And this is what I was talking. So I didn't want to go too much into this before because I would just keep talking about it if I started talking about this too early. But when I'm talking about my not issues with Bao, but why I don't think I love it as much as other people, it's like, was this as realistic or as groundbreaking as Bao? No. Was every frame of animation a part of the story and enhancing the story and enriching the story? Yes, 100%. And it was so good. I cried at this. I don't know if you did. I cried at this. I've already between watching this immediately prior to recording and recording, I've sent it to a friend who's already told me they've cried at it. Like it was so good. And so many composite parts of it were great as well. Like sometimes you'll watch something really great like this, and it's like it has one aspect which is amazing. Like you'll watch a random short and it'll have really beautiful animation, or it'll have a really great score or a really great story. Every aspect of this was genuinely top notch. Like the color palette, like immediately I just noticed like they're so well done, so well done, so beautiful, so expressive, and like an inextricable part of the story and of the short film is the color palette, and that was amazing. I love the score, especially. So I think something that's actually really underutilized in scores can be like the piano parts of it were fine, like that was good, but that's like very common, I would say, for a film score. But like the use of the guitar in it was, I think sometimes I think guitar can be really underutilized as part of scores. Like, for example, Brokeback Mountain and Gustavo Santaolalla's style, where it's very like finger picky guitar style, and there was a lot of that in this, and it really sort of like set the scene of like this coziness of the memories, and I really loved that. And just the pure emotion of it, like it's such a beautiful metaphor as well, like in terms of how taking something really awful like dementia, like really awful, and turning it into this beautiful thing of like rediscovering your love for people and rediscovering your memories, I think is such an interesting and unique perspective on it. And I think that's often the sign of someone who is a really like incredible writer is that they can look at something where all anyone can see is different variations of the same thing and suddenly unlock another side to it, which now just feels obvious. This idea of like, yes, dementia is horrific. Dementia is this awful thing. I think I don't know about other people. For me, one of like my life's worst fears is the idea that either of my parents get dementia. So the idea of turning it into this really beautiful thing of like it's really sad at the start, but like rediscovering in this beautiful moment of her remembering her daughter, amazing. The line work, hand drawn art, I think that made it way more expressive. It made it way more interesting. The watercolor aspects you were talking about wasn't even something I was consciously aware of, but then the second you point it out, it's like, oh my God, obviously that's incredible. Um, Last thing before I stop ranting and let you say something. Uh, so I think this has one of the only animated kisses that doesn't make me uncomfortable. Because normally a kiss in an animated film just looks like either their faces mashing together, or in like more recent Pixar ones, they do way too much detail and it's really creepy because they'll do all the lips and creepy, I think. But it was a really sweet, well done kiss in this. I think it was really yeah, this short was okay. Yeah, I don't feel any strong feelings about
I also really like
Oh,
this one.
good. I'd
I
yell at you if you didn't.
like it. Like I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Like of course, like the animation style here is just so gorgeous. It it creates something just so beautiful with such simplicity. It's just like just I'm always I'm marvel at the way like with animation, it's just a slight movement of like a dot or a line can just convey so much emotion. I was reading an interview where it's just like with specifically about like the animation on the faces is it's just like there's points in it where it's just like there isn't even any detail on some of the faces at times, and it's just like that only just helps you like uh extract like your own feelings or like put your own feelings onto the characters and stuff
Mm,
of, and it's like it's just a very fascinating idea. It's like how doing something simpler with a simpler animation style can just be better for depending on the story you're trying to tell.
yeah.
Oh, and it's just like God,
I,
animation's just so cool.
it
Oh,
is. I think as well, the thing with like points where they have almost no response on their face is then very reliant on the context created by the wider story, right? Because if you don't really know what's going on, you don't know what to take from that. But in this, when it's from the moment you walk in, she walks in. I don't know about you. I instantly was like, she's her daughter. This is a dementia thing. Like that was the vibe I immediately got. And what that meant was any time where you just see like no emotion on her face. That's heartbreaking. And those context clues are laid out to you as a viewer very like not easily in like a pejorative sense, not in terms of like it's not they're not beating you over the head with it, but it's the context clues are there if you look for them, and it means that something as simple as that, you're right, like it just can be heartbreaking in a way that if you're really trying to show how upset she is and she's hiding it from her mom, like that wouldn't be particularly interesting. But stoicism in the face of tragedy can be such a more interesting choice. And wow, this was brilliant.
mhm.
Like the reveal at the end is one of the most emotional moments I think I've watched in the last year. Like that was because as well, like the build of it, one of the things that I think can be quite difficult is with shorts is having an ebb and flow because you don't really have time to have up, downs, and you can't really build to things. Like unless sometimes you have a short where it's all building to one punchline. Um, and even though you could mistake it as that, that's not what I took from this. I think like you go on a journey and that's a beautiful endpoint, but it's not that the whole thing is about her remembering her daughter. It's about remembering her whole life and like this fully complete person. And yeah, man, it makes sense by the way when you're describing their like the things they've worked on. Gumball is amazing, The Breadwinner is amazing. Like I'd love to go back and even if she claims she's not as confident, I'd love to read watch some of the other shorts that she's done and Yeah, she's got a new fan in me. Oh my God.
I completely forgot where I left off.
No, no, all
But
good.
but yeah.
It's because I've been talking for so long because I'm obsessed with this.
But yeah, one of my favorite parts of it is just like the way it just flows because if I
Yes.
remember correctly, it's just like there's never really like hard cuts. It just kind of flows so
No.
seamlessly from one place to the other. But again, it's just like the color palettes do such a great job of like making sure that you always know where you are. And I love just like the kind the points where she's just kind of like floating around in the space or whatever. It's got if I remember correctly, it's like a flip color palette or something like that. It's just like
Yeah.
God, I love when animation just goes just more. I guess it's not technically abstract, but it's just like less real. Well, and it's just like it's always great when animated films just use the animation in interesting ways. It's just like it's always so good. I wish more films would be good at animating things.
Yeah, it's so simple. Just like make good films, guys. Like,
Yeah,
why are we not getting this? What's
like
not
just be better,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
easy.
But no,
Uh,
you're right that some of the scene transitions are amazing. And it's like, you know, in reality, with an animated thing, if that's something that works for the plot, why do you need cuts? Like realistically, if you're animating it all as one thing, you can have these kind of creative uses, and it's not being bound by the form in a way that some people see an animated thing as just a lesser version of it. Not to go all like uh Guillermo del Toro and go like animation is art. Like we get that. Anyone listening to this podcast gets that, but it's not being bound by the constraints of a live action film. Like because there are certain constraints that just are there because there are real people in these scenes that you have to shoot and you can't just it's very unless you're boiling point, you can't just shoot it all in one go. Whereas the fact that she didn't feel constrained by those boundaries is amazing, amazing, amazing. So exciting.
mhm. And yeah, and you were talking about the ending, of course, earlier. Is just like
Yeah.
and you were saying that like you caught on to that like immediately, but it's like I remember when I first watched this, it's like I had no clue that was going to happen. I had no clue that that was the twist. It's not even really a twist, but it'll kind of whatever.
Yeah.
It's something that happens that could be unexpected. But it's just like when you like going to this movie without that expectation versus going into it with like knowing that just adds so many
Yeah.
different layers to the whole thing. I didn't fully cry, but I was getting like emotional like when
Yeah.
that final moment hit. It's just like it's
I'm a
it's
real
just
crier,
wave.
so I also I had a promise to keep to, which is my first three notes on this are the color and then like six exclamation points. I put voice acting because the first few lines were a bit ropey, but then it sort of settles into it a little bit. And then the third thing I have written in my notes is if this is dementia, I am going to cry. And
And so you did.
then the next one after that is I'm going to cry, aren't I?
hmm And just speaking of the voice actors for a second, Fiona Flanagan is voicing older Emily, and Louise Bagnall herself voices like young adult Emily in this.
Yo, that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I love when directors are able to like act in the film as well. It's such an interesting dynamic.
And the thing about that is that she desperately was searching for another actor for the movie, just like, but it's just like, she had done like the temp vocals for it and whatever, but it's just
Really?
like and she was searching for an actor, but nobody ever really felt right for it, and so she kind of begrudgingly was just like, fine, I guess I'll do the voices,
You've seen Frasier, haven't you?
like the TV show Frasier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Have you seen the episode Ham Radio?
I don't know the specific episodes.
Ah, it's an episode where he does like a radio teleplay, and it's him being like, "Oh, I just can't find someone for the lead," and the last moment going, "I guess I'll have to step up to the job," when he's made no effort to find someone. Not suggesting he did that whatsoever, but I
Yeah,
just find that very funny.
yeah. And so just going back to the short film.
God, you don't want to talk
Sorry.
about Frasier? You fucking swear, you narc.
I look, I love tossed salad and scrambled eggs, but it's just like there's a lot to talk about here. Here, and you keep hijacking the conversation, Michael. I'm
Yeah?
kidding. But
What of it? What of it? What are you gonna do?
um
Come to England and beat me up?
I wish I could. Uh,
Oh.
anyway, um depicting Alzheimer's in movies is a very difficult thing to do. It's a
Mm.
very tricky subject. And it's like there are so many movies that like try to do it and it just ends up coming across as just so emotionally manipulative. It's just
Yes.
so fucking shit. Just like using it as a plot device. And it's like and when I was reading up on this before like watching again, it's just like part of me was like kind of scared because like I said in the thing, it's like it the film like didn't set out to portray like dementia. It just wanted to explore memory and like a woman's
Yeah.
life and stuff. And it was just using like literally using it as a plot device. Guys, but I still think that this film does a really great job in terms of just being like first just like being respectful to like people who are like suffering with the disease and stuff and just like portraying in a way that doesn't feel exploitative or anything just feel and I think that really is because it is focusing more on the life on the story and stuff
Yeah.
rather than focusing on the disease. It's just like and I guess maybe like that is the best way to do it then actually, just like using it as like that and like focusing more around it or something. I don't know.
I
But
think as well, like people are able to just get a sense of if you're inauthentic, people can tell. They don't always know they can tell, but they can tell. Like when you leave something that's trying to portray something like this and you can't really explain it, and there's like nothing feeling, like, oh, I don't know, I just didn't really connect with it. Very often you look into the production of that film and it's someone who didn't go through that experience and didn't then, which you don't have to have done, but if you haven't gone through that, you need to be willing to consult people who have. And whether I really hope she hasn't, whether she has gone through that herself or whether she contacted people and spoke to people, one of those has got to be true, you know? There is no way that a film like this was made with such respect and such a beautiful portrayal of it without some real like first-hand knowledge, whether that be from secondhand stories or whether that be from her own experience herself.
uh,
And it's just like it's really well done. And like it's like I was saying earlier, like it's not all of it is presented as this negative life-ending disease. It is also, celebrating the life of the person and celebrating the memories and who they were and who they are now still. And I think that's really important as an aspect of it because so often dementia in films is just portrayed as like that's it. That's that person done forever.
mhm. And yeah, and just from the interviews I read, I don't think she did personally experience it, but I do imagine she at the very least like did research in order to make
Yeah.
this movie. Um,
Yeah, no, 100%. Which feels like the bare minimum, but it's doing research, but it's also doing research in a way where you're willing to take on what people are saying. And clearly she must be an incredibly empathetic person if she's not been through that and has been able to do it, because sometimes people will do this research and they'll go chasing for the stories that reinforce their pre-existing beliefs. So whether that was her pre-existing beliefs or not, like I just feel like that must have been a very open research process where she's really taken on, because to be able to trace something that well when you've not been through it is a beautiful skill. It's really impressive if so.
mhm. Yeah, and I just wanted to say it's like next year there is another film that also tackles dementia, and it's like I haven't done the research for that episode yet. I haven't recorded it or anything, and but it's just like and I remember liking the film next year less than I like Late Afternoon,
Mm.
and I'm very curious to go into like the details of that production to see like if there's any similarities, any differences with like this production. Just like what was the
Mm.
goal of that film? How does it achieve that goal? And who knows? Maybe I will like that film more on this rewatch, or maybe not. I don't know. It'll be interesting to find out. Now, make sure to talk about it and compare it to
Yeah.
this one then as well.
I think that's interesting as well in terms of we'll get to this in a minute, but the next two after this and Bow, I find it really interesting how sometimes there will just be such a clear, grabbable theme that links different things within the same year. Like there is of these five, four of them really deal with the idea of parenthood from wildly different perspectives. Like obviously looking at parenthood through the idea of like being a mother with dementia and having their child have to look after them is completely different to say bow. But I just find it really interesting how sometimes you will get nominees from the same year where there just will be these themes that sort of drag them together in this really beautiful way. And
Mhm.
then also animal behavior.
Animal behavior is in fact also here.
Yes,
But
because the gorilla is mother, and therefore that is how that film also deals with motherhood. That's what it is. I've fixed it. There you go. That silence was mean
no,
and much.
I was laughing. My microphone just didn't pick it up, I don't think. I'm, uh but also I'm trying to think of like one of those like shitted from the mother butthole or whatever things. Just
Oh, and that's a good point for us to move on, I reckon.
no, but I had more to say about late afternoon. I just wanted to talk a little bit about how like even though like this gets talked about so much about like oh it's a film that's depicting dementia. It's like I do want to like go back to like how Louise Bagnall, she the main goal of this film was really to just like depict like women's stories, like just like depicting the rich
Yeah.
inner life that is so often left out of stories about women and or like whenever like story there's just so few, and it's just like I just really appreciate just
Mhm.
like I think the final moment of the film when she does finally like connect with her daughter is just like this whole film like it kind of goes through her life chronologically in a bit and it's like we
Yeah.
just see her life go and then just like when she finally recognizes her daughter as just like it's such a powerful moment. I'm bad at talking, I'm realizing. I just
No,
don't know
you're
how to
not.
convey
You're
my
absolutely not.
ideas.
That's a really interesting concept of it, and like removing because to say for me to say about how it's beautiful because it sort of treats the her as a whole person and not just her dementia, but then not acknowledge what you're saying about like the idea that it's about women's stories ultimately and it's about women's memories. I think that's a really interesting and like important point to land on. And yeah, because the ending is more than just like the dementia side of it. It's like that wouldn't hit the same if it was just like you get no prior introduction to an incredibly like beautiful portrayal of a mother and her daughter, then it wouldn't hit as much. Like if it was just it was showing dementia her whole life and then she goes, Emily, wouldn't
Mhm.
hit whatsoever. But her doing that within the context of all her stories, within the context of all she is, makes it transcend that idea. So no, that's not bad at talking at all. That's a really interesting point.
Mhm. And also to just end this on a lighter note as well, I do like how the convenient plot device, or it's just like, how do we learn this character's name? I know, we'll just have her write it out on a fucking beach for all of us.
Yeah,
Just
that's a thing that kids do. I remember writing my name in the sand. Maybe it's a thing for people of Celtic origins, clearly. You just hate the Irish.
no, I just hate you.
That's
I'm kidding.
understandable.
I'm
That's
kidding.
understandable.
I
No, you
love
said it.
you, Michael.
Don't take it back, you fucking coward.
I am a coward. Moving on to our fourth nominee, which is One Small Step, directed by Andrew Chesworth and Bobby Pontius. This is the first and only nomination for both Chesworth and Pontius. The two men met as animators at Walt Disney Animation Studios, both working on Frozen, Feast, and Big Hero 6, among other projects. The two would leave Disney in 2017 to work on their passion project, today's nominee. Beyond this film, however, Pontius would go back to Disney and work in the development department, apparently developing several unnamed projects according to his LinkedIn page. Meanwhile, Chesworth worked freelance after One Small Step, taking various animation jobs before settling in at Netflix, working on the show My Dad, the Bounty Hunter, and being an on-call animation supervisor for various Netflix productions. Meanwhile, he also ended up making a completely solo animated short film called The Brave Locomotive, which he'd been working on since 2009, but his time at Disney had him shelved for a long while. He was able to fund the film through Patreon and released it last year, and it's actually quite good. I watched it. But let's go back to One Small Step. Chesworth and Pautius first wanted to tell the story of a person who set out in their life to achieve one single goal, and every decision in that life was for that one thing. It was the story of Chinese astronaut Lu Yong that inspired the filmmakers to make the story about a female astronaut. The team really sought after creating a film that was truly universal, something that anyone from anywhere could enjoy, which is helped by the fact that the film is produced by Taiko Studios, which is based in both the US and China. That universality is baked into the core of the company. One Small Step begins with a little girl, Luna, watching a rocket launch on television. From this moment on, she wants to be an astronaut. Her father supports her every step of the way the best he can, through though his trade is cobbler. Whenever one of her shoes break, he mends it, and as time goes on, Luna keeps working towards her dream, but keeps stumbling along the path, things seeming more and more hopeless. If getting rejected from the space program wasn't bad enough, her father then passes away. Luna's dream seems hopeless, but as she's packing things up, she finds out her father kept all of her old shoes, including her pretend astronaut boots that she wore when the dream first came. She begins her work again and soon enough finally gets to the moon. So I'll start by saying that when I first watched this, not only did this become like one of my favorite films of all time, I sobbed in the theater when I was watching the whole shorts
Yes.
program. Um, my opinions now are a lot less. Uh, I did not cry this time, and I do have complaints. Uh, it's like yes, this is just the most generic short film that has ever been made. It is pretty to
Excuse
look at.
me?
It like look, I still like it. I still think it's nice. I still got a little emotional at the end, but Jesus Christ, this is just beat for beat, like every fucking generic story. It's like
I'm gonna
God,
leave.
I I just don't really have much to say about this because there is nothing really that deep here. It's just girl wants to become
I
astronaut and
don't
then
agree.
the dad dies. It's just like, wow, now I can become astronaut. And she does. And
I
that's it.
think that's a massive oversimplification of it, and I think you know that.
N no, like it's pretty much it. But you go
I
ahead. You defend this film because I was expecting to be the one defending it until I watched it again.
No, 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 no. I think again, as I was saying earlier, so this one is a 15-minute short, bit longer, but at the same
It's not
time,
15 minutes.
is this one of the 8-minute ones?
Yeah.
Even more impressive. Holy shit, that's another point in my column because again, the fact that it has such a clear ebb and flow and it has a real set of low moments and a sort of slow decline and a rise after, I think that's really impressive to still be able to have those beats and that sort of flow to the plot. That's really impressive. I think one moment for me genuinely solidified how great it was, in my opinion, and that's the scene at the grave when after his death, after the dad's death, it is so drained of color as a short. And it previously is so colorful and so exuberant. And I think it's a really clever way of just expressing grief and expressing then when she overcomes that and is able to use it to fuel her, like achieving her lifelong dream that he wanted for her, the color slowly coming back in and back in until before you even like notice it, suddenly you're back and like, oh, where has all this color come from? This is a beautiful, picturesque scene. It is genuinely really well made. I think really beautiful. And I think it's really easy to nitpick with these kind of things because you've seen a story before. But my opinion is trust your emotions. And I don't care if what I watch is the most generic thing I've ever seen. If my emotions tell me that it's affecting me, then it's doing something right. Whether I fully am like engaging with everything it is doing, at the end of the day, you watch things to feel things. And if you felt something watching this, then it is a success and it is good, regardless of whether we've seen it before. Because just because you've seen it before doesn't mean it's not still great. Like all stories can really be boiled down to like basic tropes. but that doesn't make those tropes any less meaningful when put to really good use. And I think that it also just has some interesting things to say about like the dedication of a father and like looking at, because often when you think about like inspiring a child, you have the two major things. If you have like the big picture, I'm going to set up this set of toys for you and set up things that make you believe that you can go to the stars and make you as a child believe you are flying in space, but then also engaging with it on the stuff that you don't really notice until you become an adult, like the sacrifices that your parents make for you, which is another one that in the next short I think we can expand on more. But all the work he did to like repair her things and look after her shoes, like it's a really small thing, but I think it's that really beautiful idea of like there is so much your parents do for you to support you, to inspire you, that you don't even ever see or recognize as being a big thing. And often it isn't until they are gone that you're able to recognize that. And that was something that I think was really engaged with well in the film. Go on. Even though I'm emotional, tell me how I'm wrong, motherfucker. Tell me, tell me,
So
tell me.
rather than focusing on telling you why you're wrong, I'm gonna tell my past self why I was wrong. And I think a lot of it is just the fact that when I first watched this back in 2019 or whatever, it's just like I hadn't watched as many short films as I had now. Like I hadn't gone through and like watched every fucking nominee in this fucking category at that point. And it's just like I just wasn't aware of like how common tropes like this film are. It's just like, but after going through this category, it's just like this is the standard for like the kind of film that somebody fresh out of film school or like for their thesis project. This is the kind of shit that they make. Like, and it's just like it just goes beat for every single generic story. And it's just like, and that doesn't mean it's that doesn't make a film bad. Just the fact that it tells a story that's been told before, or it's just like it. But what you need to do is make the audience feel like they've never told that story, like that story's never been told before. Like get that emotions in, and I clearly it did for you. It certainly did for me the first time I watched it, but this time it's just like I watched this and I just see, and I'm just thinking it's just like this film is doing nothing that is really notable in any way. Like the
I think
animation,
I disagree with that in terms of I think the lighting and color is really interesting and how it's used.
again, it's just like I feel like the animation style is just incredibly generic. It's just like I feel like it's the kind of animation style that's being made a lot like at this time
Yeah, I
period,
think that's
at that
fair.
time period. It as just like,
But
and the
that's but
stuff
that's
you were saying
obviously
about like
separate. But that's separate for me to the color palette and the lighting, which is like the animation style. I would 100% agree. It's a dime a dozen. Still really impressive, but dime a dozen. But I think the lighting and the color are a separate thing to that, and I think the use of that in portraying grief was really interesting. So I'm standing 10 toes down on that one. But sorry, continue.
and I was just about to say before you interrupted me that it's just like
Yeah,
the stuff you were mentioning before about like how like oh when the character is sad it loses all color. It's just like yeah, they people have been doing that shit as long for this long time, and ever since we had color, we've been using like a lack of color to em emblemize that. And it's just like it's just so it's just film school 101 here. It's just like, yes, it's fine. It's basic, but it's just like it's not going to really move me that much because it just doesn't do anything interesting for me. It's just, and again, I still kind of like it because again, it's just like the even though I didn't cry this time, it's like the ending where she's on the moon. It's just like she's
and
like
she's called Luna. He named her Luna. How does that not move you?
it. So he named her Luna first, and then she randomly decided to want to become an astronaut. It just happened that way.
Or he has a keen interest in space, and therefore that is what he exposed her to a lot as a child. And due to her love for her father, that is something that she always engaged with as a child. And therefore, by the time she became an adult, it was this combined thing where she loved it because of her childlike glee, but also for her desire to make her father proud.
I don't think that that's implied in the film in any way. It like it starts with her just
Hey,
watching a rocket launch and her being suddenly inspired, and then she has her father make her the space outfit, and then it's just like, and it just kind of fuels her from then on. But it's just like it's not like it's
but
like the
would you not
connection she
say
had.
from the fact that the restarting moment is finding A, all the shoes that her father had like repaired for her and all of her shoes, but also finding that first astronaut shoe from when she was a child.
But
For
what
me, that's a desire to retouch with your childhood, and I think that's really interesting.
Okay, but it's just like it's not what you were saying. It's not that she connects the astronaut stuff with her father. It's that these are both things that have been there for her in her life. It's just like she was about to like give up on it, but it's like seeing those astronaut boots. It reminds her like this is something that she's wanted this whole time, and just reminds her that her dad was always there for her at every step of the way, and mending her shoes at every fucking time she needed her shoes mended and things. And it's just like, and like those two different things fuel her. And it's just like, yeah, it's just, I want to like this more than I do, but I just can't.
Before we move on to the final film, I think it's really impressive, and we should really applaud you for the fact that you've been managing to maintain your cool whilst I've been flipping you off non-stop for the entire discussion of this film.
You th I don't look at the Zoom call. I'm looking at my script right
Oh,
now.
oh no. I was literally just doing this, like flipping you off non-stop for pretty much this entire time.
I think the same thing happened last episode with Rory. Like he had something with his he turned on his camera at one point to show me something, and it's just like, oh, I was not looking. I'm looking at my script right now.
Well, now you know.
Okay, well, thank you for flipping me off. Uh,
You're welcome.
Anything else you'd like to say about this?
I think you're wrong, and I think everyone should. Well, if you haven't watched it, then we've probably spoiled it.
I
But
mean,
I think it's great. I think that at the end of the day, not everything can be explained, and just because something's been done before doesn't mean it's been done as well. And I think that for say like the idea of the color, I get that that is a very obvious choice, but then where Film School 101 is knowing to do that, film school mastery is being able to do that effectively and to be able to do that in a way that conveys the emotion you're trying to do. I think that's beautifully done. I think that the candles she was lighting over his grave was a beautiful lighting of that scene. And I think you can't argue with your emotions. And my emotions in this film were telling me that it was very effective and told a story that made me cry. So not gonna I'm ultimately always chasing with films, I'm chasing things that make me feel extreme emotions. And whilst I can't always explain why they do that, I think that I like to trust my gut with that. So that's one that influenced me on this.
chasing windmills. But also, I just want to say, as a one final note, you mentioned is this like people should watch it, but we also just kind of spoiled it, and it's just like
Yes.
you can predict where the film's gonna go from the first frame. Like, come on,
Yeah.
it's just like there's no spoilers here. But anyway, our fifth and final nominee is Weekends, directed by Trevor Jimenez. This is Jimenez's first and only nomination thus far, and began his animation career after graduating from Sheridan College in 2007. Jimenez specialized as a story artist, working with many different animation companies while trying to find his footing, including Blue Sky, Disney, Illumination, and Cartoon Network, before eventually settling in at Pixar. He started at Pixar in 2012 and since then worked as a story artist on Finding Dory, Coco, and Soul. Through the Pixar Co-op program, Jimenez was able to make today's nominees using Pixar resources. The real story of the film starts with just an image. Jimenez posted a drawing online in 2007 of a child walking from his mom's house to his dad's car. The drawing got an emotional response from a lot of his friends, and Jimenez began considering making a broader film about being a child of divorce, which is part of his own life too. He would work on the story on and off, never feeling too confident in himself. But it was 2011 when he had worked at Cinder. Cinderbiter Productions, Henry Selick's short-lived animation studio, and met a wide array of interesting, daring creatives that he felt more comfortable in writing something like this. So by the time he got to Pixar, he made good use of the co-op program to begin developing this, it taking 3 years to write, storyboard, and edit the film until it reached a state where it was ready for production. He would then take a year off from Pixar to complete his film, and the story of the film was always intended to be a depiction of the life of a child divorce and try to accurately replicate that in the animated form. Jimenez slowly built the film up, adding more and more details while still keeping the film dense and tight so it was never wasteful with its time. The original version of the film wasn't even weekends. It had only one weekend in it. But the one constant throughout the film was Jimenez's mother, who he constantly sent new drafts of, and his progress on the film, partially because he loves his mom and wants to show her what he's working on, but also to make sure that she was okay with how he was portraying their life. Weekends is about a boy constantly going back and forth between his mom's house and his dad's apartment. Mom has papers everywhere, dad has samurai swords. Mom has a weird, scary boyfriend, dad lets you watch horror movies. Mom seems to be trying her best, dad is kind of a loser. Michael, what did you think of Weekends?
Well, it was really good. I think bits of it were maybe lost on me. I think bits of it were a bit abstract for me in terms of like the dreams he was having and stuff. I was not quite figuring those out. However, I think that the core story of him and his mum is one that was always going to hit me in the feels. Like I think that was always one for me personally that was going to like really make me feel emotional. Um yeah, I think that sometimes the portrayal of the dad was a little bit I don't know. It was like a textbook. If you're going to write a dad who sucks in split custody, that's what you'd write. You'd write, someone who portrays this really cool world when actually they're just a very dense loser. And I think that was a bit obviously done, but the portrayal of the mother was amazing. And I think that it's a really it's a really great portrayal of what kids actually value in the long term. Like they don't value like in a short term, if you show a kid a cool sword and let them stay up and eat junk food, like they are gonna love it. That's gonna be great. But it's like really digging into like what does a child actually need? What will they respond to in the long term? And that's someone who's always there for them, who's always like you can tell every time you see the mother, she's trying her hardest to do better for him and to make a better life for him. And the like, if you put a side by side shot of her house at the start versus the end, it would be like completely stark differences. I think that was just again a bit of an obvious way to show it, but just a really like still again, even if it's obvious, was still a bit of like an emotional like, oh, his mother has had to properly slog through it, but she's able to now provide this life for him. And I thought that was really beautiful. What do you think?
I really like this one.
Mm,
Uh, I first want to point out how the film has these like really interesting kind of surreal sequences that
mm.
I can't totally put my head around, like especially
Yeah,
the one with the horse. Like the dad has this like weird horse statue that the boy likes to climb on
yeah.
at times, and
And
there's
like
one point,
sleep on and
yeah, and there's like there's a surreal sequence involving it. Don't know what that one was about, but I just do like the little those little flourishes. But also, I just think the film, like this is another 15-minute film, and it's like
yeah.
it's
But it
I
uses the time way more.
again,
Uses
yeah,
the
I was
time
like I was
way more.
comparing it to Animal Behavior. Is just like I don't feel the length of this one, but it's just
No.
like you like. And like I mentioned in the paragraph, it's like Jimenez makes sure to feel make sure that like each frame is giving you some more information. Like there's no it never feels repetitive, even though it is kind of repetitive. It's just like each
Yeah.
weekend he goes back to his dad's house or whatever. But it's just like things just keep building. It's like you learn more information. It's like this is how films work. You're
It's and
supposed to
anything that is repetitive is the point. The point is that it's repetitive. Like he's playing the same dumb this song, which is really cool when he first does it, and then he just keeps doing it. And that's really the point of it, of this idea of like him trying to portray this amazing life to his son, but having no actual like depth to be able to continue to do that repeatedly beyond the first few times that you see him.
Mhm.
No, I 100% agree. It's really good in terms of using the time it has. Yeah, I think just I agree. The surreal stuff was like a bit over my head, but it was really enjoyable to watch. I was like, I'm enjoying this. This is cool. I don't know how this really relates to the plot, but that doesn't always need to. Sometimes it just makes you feel things, and that's cool. I really like. What did you think of the animation style? I thought it was very like Charlie Brown almost, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I did really like the drawings. It just the way it all moved and whatever. And it's like I just love the environments especially. It's like the film takes place across multiple seasons and whatever, and you just really feel that. You can feel the weather and the environments. It's just so good. I like it doesn't feel right to say I want to live in this movie considering, like the subject matter at hand, but I just maybe I just want to go to Canada. Maybe that's it. I don't know.
No,
But
what you
I just think
want,
the drawings are great.
I think I can look through and say what you want. You want the world to look like how it looks like in this film for you. You want your world in that animation style. Am I correct?
I want the whole world in my hands. I got the whole world.
And that's the end of this episode.
No. Okay, going back to weekends.
Can
Um, can you tell I'm sleep deprived? Yeah.
you tell I'm sleep deprived? This is we're probably operating on a combined single digit number of hours of sleep, and that is never a good place to be.
All right. But anyway, Uh, what else is there to say about the I do want to point out that you're doing the same shit I did the last thing, and I didn't flip you off this time. It's fine. When you were saying that, oh, this is kind of generic storytelling or whatever, but it's
No,
like it's
I'm not
not.
saying that's a criticism, though. I'm not saying that's a criticism. I'm saying that one or two character beats are maybe a little bit generic, but I think that's fine and it works because the wider idea of it is really original, and I think the wider idea of it is really emotionally effective. I think that I'm not saying that the whole thing is generic because it's very clearly not. Like that, no one would watch this film and come out of there and be like, "Seen that before." It's incredibly unique and its
Mhm,
own thing, but it was more just about like one or two character beats, I think, because I think that in such a short amount of time, if you're going to have like four or five characters, at least one of them has to be like a stereotype, right? You don't really have time to have fully fleshed out original characters of every single one. And I think the dad is just a bit like it's just a bit of an obvious dude, bro, annoying dad. Like, you know what I mean? Um, maybe that's just obvious to me and it's not obvious in like a cinematic language way.
mhm. But I think that the real difference between this and like One Small Step for me is that there's just so much more emotional truth in here. Whereas like with One Small Step, that one just feels like it's just using these kind of emotions and story beats just to tell this story that I don't really feel like the creators had really any personal investment in, and like as
Right.
a story, they just really wanted to make a movie. But meanwhile, this, it's like you can feel that like this is Trevor Jimenez's life. And it's like
Yeah.
he is putting on the screen for you. And it's just like, yeah, it's like, so even if like the kind of loser debt is a little bit of a trope, it's just like, it doesn't feel like one because it is coming from a real place.
Yeah. No, no, that's totally fair. I do completely understand that. And man, I'm just not to go too far off, but I feel it's a relevant thing to say. As a child of divorce where my dad lived in Asia, thank God I didn't have a dad who was one of those samurai dude bro dads who lived in their pajamas. Holy shit, that would be depressing.
Mhm.
But that also meant that I feel like I had an interesting, I don't know, I feel like I have a bit of an interesting perspective on this film because I come from a relatively healthy divorce where they didn't split weekends because I lived in a different country, right? But that's really interesting then because I feel like sometimes film is seeing like almost portals into other worlds and portals into like other people's existences. And so it's really interesting when you watch a film and it's this portrayal of something that like could have been you if a few more things went wrong. And I think that's something that can be quite like emotionally effective and like I found this film really unsettling actually at points, in parts because of that, and in parts because of like some of the creative choices were really unique and really cool, and a little bit like I think purposely unsettling. Like the stuff with his candle and his dad, the boyfriend's head was the dad or the boyfriend, the boyfriend's
The
head,
boyfriend.
which also I think part of that, you know, if I was trying to like pick a attach some meaning to it. I think you could literally just say that it shows the effect that like the shitty boyfriend was having on him and how much happier he is when his mum is without this guy and how it was like bleeding into his subconscious of being like unsettled and uncomfortable in his own home and the importance of like a child being comfortable in their home, I guess.
Hmm.
If you like held a gun to my head and told me to find meaning in those, that would probably be it.
Nice.
Do you have any more thoughts on this? What do you any final?
Hey, that's my line. Uh,
Hey, I got you,
hey,
got
if you
you.
want to host this, go ahead.
Hell no. I would never try and take on such a mammoth
Yeah, you would never
undertaking.
host a podcast.
Yeah, I'm a white man. Why would I do that? No,
It's
but
not like we have evidence of a podcast you used to host
not if I
for one
scrub
of
it
your
from the
former
internet, baby. I
jobs.
can scrub it from the internet for before this podcast comes out. I can do it like that. I got the
You,
password somewhere.
you
But
do
no,
have plenty of
the
time.
other reason I wouldn't is you are incredible at this, and I feel like you put so much effort in, and you put so much effort into engaging with what people say about it, and also just researching it to a brilliant level. So I
Oh,
could never.
oh, thanks.
You're welcome, motherfucker.
Uh, I think that's a good place to end. Now that we've gone through and talked about the five nominees, let's rank them all.
Now we've complimented you. You're ready. That's this episode's never actually being released. You were just waiting for me to do that.
Sh- What's your number five?
Oh, animal behavior.
All right. My number five is also animal behavior. Just
Yeah.
bad, generic, whatever.
Yeah.
Number four,
Mm, Bow.
rude. Okay.
Sorry. I can guess what yours is gonna be.
So yeah, my number four is one small step, which I wish it was higher, but it's just not. Number three.
I want to say that this is really close, so I do want to clarify that.
Okay.
I think number three is weekends for me.
Ooh.
Yeah.
My number three is also weekends, which again
Really?
I really like, but the other two are just also great.
Understandable. I do want to say, I think all of them except animal behavior for me, this is a really strong year. Like I feel
Hmm.
like there is whether you like one small step or not, I think there is an argument to which all four of those could have won. Like all of them are really strong contenders and could win other years quite easily.
Bao is probably gonna always win this year, though.
Yeah, of course. It's a fucking
It-
Pixar. It's a Pixar short with that beautiful animation. And you know what? How likely is it that all of the discussion for another day? How likely is it that all of the Academy voters will have watched all the others?
well, they are forced to with this category.
Mm, I don't believe you.
That they
That's
are. That's just
you get my wider point though. You get my wider point in
I
terms.
do.
I think that Pixar is always going to sway people to a certain extent.
Yeah. Number two.
Number two's Bow, not Bow, Bow. Fuck,
W-
it's been a long week.
One small
One
step
small
is yours.
step. One
Uh,
small step is my number two. I think everyone can guess what my number one is.
my number two is late afternoon. I really
My
liked it. It's really good, but go ahead, talk about your number one.
number one is late afternoon. I think that from the very first frame, the color palette just immediately draws you in. It immediately creates that cozy feeling. And then diving into her memories is an absolutely incredible, entrancing experience. I think that so often films are either pretty or they have something interesting to say. And I think when you find one that does both, grab onto it with both hands and don't let go. And I feel that's what I've found with Late Afternoon. It's instantly shot up to being one of, if not my favorite short of all time. I think that it is emotionally effective, emotionally engaging. It's unique. It is just so fucking beautiful. It is genuinely breathtaking with the animation. I just love it so much. I think that there is something special in Irish art. There has always been something special in Irish art, which I will always connect to a certain extent, even if nationhood does not play a role in the art itself. I think that there's just something there that is so special with how they support their artists and how they give them the space to be able to create beautiful things like this. I think that it is just a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant short. And the moment of her remembering her daughter is genuinely the one of the hardest that anything in film and TV has touched me in probably the last 12 months. And that for me makes it number one, but I completely understand why. Yours is yours.
My number one's Bow because I like it more. Anyway,
I want to hear you rant. I want to hear you talk about how much you love Bao. Come on, give us a bit.
I
Give us a
I'm not gonna we talked about it a lot anyway, but
bit.
uh before we end our show, are there any final thoughts you'd like to share, Michael, or anything you'd like to promote?
Final thoughts. I'd just like to say thank you as always for inviting me on. I think it's really great that you are showcasing this element of the Oscars, which is often overlooked, but can
Stop.
genuinely find some like absolute gems. Like the facts that I found late afternoon is amazing. I'm gonna be talking about it all week. It's fucking brilliant. And I wouldn't normally engage for it to this level. And I think that's great. In terms of stuff to promote, so I am actually a film and TV writer now. I'm the first ever dedicated film and TV writer for the Lad Bible group. So that's going to be Lad Bible, Unilad, which I know generally, I'm going to be very honest. I think that people who are listening to this kind of podcast would normally associate that with more surface level film and TV writing. But very much part of me being brought in is they are becoming an authority on these things. And that is only going to continue, hopefully, with my appointment there. Very much the goal of it is genuine TV film analysis coverage. And so if people were willing to give us a try, I would really appreciate it. And also listen to this podcast more. If you're listening to this, do it, please.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you,
What a
Michael, for
call to action.
thank you, Michael, for coming on the show, and thank you, listener, for tuning in. This has been the short podcast about short films. Until next time, goodbye.